Today's live is a pretty nice topic, which is how to structure your sales calls for your agency. So whenever you're hopping on calls with prospects, when you do not have any experience, ends up happening is when you lack any kind of structure to your sales calls, then you don't know what path you're following. And frankly, sometimes you don't even know how you'll reach the point of actually closing the prospect. Because the difference between having a structure with your agency sales calls and not having a structure is that if in case you do lose track within like these calls, you can actually come back to the steps and the structure you had in place, so that you can still stay in the framework of getting to know the person, pitching, and then eventually reaching the point where you can close the prospect. But if you do not have any structure in place, then what ends up happening is that you get confused. It looks like a maze because prospect is throwing questions to you from left and right, and you're just answering them, but you don't know how you will reach the point of actually describing your service and actually making it feel like your service is what they need in their position, and it just becomes a whole mess. Right? So in today's live video, I wanted to discuss how you would go about structuring your live, like your sales calls. Okay. So this will be a 6-step process, and there's only like simple 6 steps which you need to follow. But before I begin with like the 6 steps, one thing which I will say is with like every time you have a sales call, every time before hopping on a sales call, I usually recommend to have like a pre-call ritual. Okay. And I have these points right here as well, just so I can explain them better. But the few things which I recommend doing, and I have personally tested these and these work well, is number one, motion creates emotion. Okay. So get in the state of the call, before the actual call. You need to do these pre-rituals. Okay. Lose all the emotional baggage from the day. Okay. If you had a bad day, you had a good day, you lost like a client, you're having troubles somewhere else in your life, you need to lose them before you hop on a call, because frankly, we are humans and feelings reflect very easily, right? So you need to lose all your emotional baggage, anything which you feel like was a bit negative throughout the day, before hopping on a call, because you want to seem the most cheerful you can, as always on these calls. Okay. Confident and cheerful, right? So just be energetic, be certain in like every time you're saying something out of like your script as well, like your sales script or your sales framework. Okay. Position it in a way where you know what you're saying. You're not just saying it for the sake of it, or just because it was there in the sales script. Know why you're asking certain questions. Okay. And be in a position to genuinely help out the other person. Okay. You don't want to be super salesy and just pushy. That does not work, and it has never really worked with me as well. I started out, I did these salesy things with like my e-commerce brand prospects earlier in my agency journey, and it frankly didn't work. And it was just easy for them to catch as well from like a mile away when I was going in certain direction like this, right? So you want to make sure you're actually there, happy, cheerful, genuine, confident, and just in the position to actually help the person on the other end of the call, right? Another thing which I would recommend is to have like a paper and pen ready, because you will have things to write down, especially with like numbers, conversion rates, etc, etc. Okay. And lastly, just cut out all the noise. Okay. You don't want like your kids, you don't want like your friends, your brother, your parents in the room, right? You want to be completely separated. You don't want your wife as well in this room. Okay. Just be in a very quiet room. Okay. In a situation of like complete focus. I just clear out my entire desk before like sales calls. It is usually messy, so I just clear it out just so I know where I'm focusing. And lastly, just have like a good Wi-Fi and like good headphones, because at the end of the day, it's not the video which matters more, it's the audio. You want to make sure you're clear to your prospect, right? So these are some certain pre-rituals I recommend doing before the calls. But now coming to like the 6 steps which I follow as like a structure for my sales calls with my own agency. Number one, it always starts with like a icebreaker. Okay. You just can't come there and just start asking questions and pushing your offer down their throat, right? That does not work. You are human, they are human, and always, again, as I told you, you're here in this situation to connect as a business owner. So just have certain like a good like 2 minutes of like icebreakers. Hey, where are you from? Oh, interesting. What has been up to with this? Just common topics which you can chat over, right? So this should last you about like 2 minutes, not more than that. We don't want to be just keep on chatting. You need to respect their time as well as your time, right? And then now you move to like the next like stage 2, which is which is the stage where you're actually interrogating. So not really interrogating, you don't want to just push questions, okay, all the time, but it's like the line of questioning. Like this is where you go down and you just ask questions to understand their situation, where they are at, what they're looking to do, what's the current situations and problems you're facing, okay, and where do they want to be. So what's their current situation A, what's their current situation, like their future desirable situation B, and like what are they actually looking for, and you need to ask these questions to make sure you can actually help them, okay. It won't make sense to even if it was possible, usually people do not sign on with you if they don't see any value. But even if you did end up signing and your service didn't correlate with what they're looking for, it would be of no use, right? You're not getting a good case study out of it, and it would just be like a lose-lose for both of you, okay. So yeah, in this like stage 2 line of questioning, you do not want to just be super like interrogative, okay. This is not like an like a FBI interrogation, right? I usually even like even on sales calls, I just say, hey, I'm gonna ask you questions. I give them like a pre-notice. I'm gonna ask you certain questions, so I hope this doesn't feel like an interrogation to you, okay. I just want like I give them the reason. I'll be asking you questions just so I understand your situation better, right? Then the second like third phase is to actually pitch your services. So once you have understood the situations, once it makes sense to you that you can actually help them, that's when you come to like the third phase, which is actually pitching your services, okay. How you can help them, what all is included. Now you do not want to go super in depth in like the its ifs and buts and like how something functions. They don't want to see the mechanism in action. You need to give like a broad view, right? You just need to go over your offer and how you can help them, and just back it up with like basics of how it's actually working, right? So do not get super engrossed into like the workings, like the inner workings. Do not be super outwards as well. Just the middle is like the sweet spot, okay. So just pitch your services, okay. Once you're done doing that, that's when like the tables will turn and they'll start asking you questions, okay. So questions, they'll ask you questions about like the inner workings, logistics, etc, etc, and how does something else work. And what you need to do is instead of complicating, while you need to answer their questions, you still want to keep it simple. We do not want to fill their brain with a lot of like thoughts, because that always leads to confusion. We always want to keep it clear. What I usually do in this phase of answering their questions is at the end of like every major question, I do ask them that, is there anything else left to ask? Like, do you completely understand this? I'm sure I'm throwing a lot of information at you at this point. So like, do you completely understand this? Right? So that's one thing, right? And then you go to the next stage, which is actually conquering their objections. So logistical questions are a different thing from objections. Logistical questions are what are covered in the previous stage, but while conquering objections, that's where you go ahead and answer like the ifs and buts. Oh, how, like, is this going to work? I'm not sure. Like, do you have any past results? Have you done this with a similar client in the niche before? And just certain objections. For example, you will receive price-based objections as well. I don't think I want to pay that much retainer. Then you conquer that objection. Hey, if you do not want to do a lot of retainer, we can increase like the percentage ROAS side. So you can give us like a certain percentage of your sales or the return we bring you on like your ad spend, just in case you're doing like paid advertisements as a service, right? This could be pricing. They could also tell you, hey, I do not want to start today. I want to start on X date, right? then you need to conquer that objections. For example, hey, why do you want to wait until then? Is there something is there something actually very logistical stopping you, or are you just giving like a shadow answer, like a shadow objection? So you want to go in depth, find their actual problems. They'll give you objections, but you truly want to get deep into like why are they facing this objection? And do not shy away from asking questions like, hey, could you clarify this for me? I don't get this objection of yours. For example, if they say they want to talk to their business partner, right? That's a very common one, right? So you want to go ahead and see, do you understand this? Would your business partner contradict what like you saw today? If you are agreeing with this, if you want to move forward with this, do you think your business partner would not like to move away? Would he have any objections, right? If they still do not agree, and if they still want to like reschedule the call, then you want to actually set up a call. So you need to face all these objections. There's like hundreds of objections which can come your way, and you only learn by experience. That's why I recommend like recording your sales calls as well, and like even after every sales call you do, whether it's a successful one or not, always go through your call again and the things which you have written down, so that you can make notice of like the objections and things you noticed and you were not able to conquer, so that the next time you hop on a call with a prospect, you don't face the same issues, and bam, you have an answer for that, right? And now coming to the last phase, which is the phase of closing and actually getting the cash, right? So this is where once you have completely done with the objections, you again go ahead and clarify and make sure that they do not have any remaining questions. A confused client never buys. This is from my personal experience and learnings. A confused client will never buy. They only buy when they're certain, right? So you want to make sure you remove all the confusion for them. You do that work for them. You clarify. You want to make sure you're giving them an actual roadmap, and like how things are going to go on, and what are the steps going to be, just so they are clear with everything, right? And this is where you like pitch the price as well, and you just send over the invoice. You get a yes and an approval from them, and then you eventually onboard, right? So that's like the 6-step process. Again, just to keep it brief, first it starts with the icebreaker. Second is like the questionings, the line of questioning, right? Third is like actually pitching your service. Fourth is answering their questions where the tables get turned, right? And then it comes to facing the objections and conquering them, right? And then the last one is closing, where you actually close the client and then eventually move on to onboarding as well. Now, that's basically it. One thing which I would say is these sales calls usually should be like a 1-call close. I know a lot of people do 2-call closes. I personally do 2-call closes as well, but I want to make sure you understand the point that it is possible to sell on higher ticket clients on 1 calls as well. And this whole structure which I just told you usually lasts about like 40 to 60 minutes. That's like the usual timing it lasts for me, at least. It might be like 5-10 minutes up or down for you. But that's basically it. It's completely possible to sell these clients on 1 call as well. And if not, you can always schedule like a follow-up call, right? And then sell them, right? So you can do a 2-call close as well as a 1-call close, but I always recommend trying to do a 1-call close. Things are just so much easier, right? And less time taking as well. So that's basically it. I see one question in the comments on what are the questions we should ask. I think you are talking about the questions to ask in like the line of questioning. This is where you ask their current metrics. So for example, what's their average revenue? What's the conversion rate they're seeing on their website? Just for example, if you're working with like an e-commerce brand, right? Just to give you an example, what are the current metrics they're seeing? What's the goal? How much are they spending on ads? What's the ROAS they're seeing there on the ads? What are the campaigns working well for them? What's the average order value, for example? So these are certain questions which you can ask. So yeah, that's basically it. If you have any other questions, please leave it in the comments below and I'd be happy to answer. And feel free to reach out to me on like Messenger or Instagram as well. I'm always there to answer your questions. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope I was able to help you, and I hope this added some value to your day as well, right? So enjoy, keep practicing your sales. It only gets better. Bye bye.